Every spring, Americans spend $9 billion killing plants. Not invasive species, not toxic trees, not anything threatening an ecosystem. They spend $9 billion killing food, plants that fed humans for thousands of years, plants that survived empires, famines, and colonial suppression. Plants that grow in compacted soil, return after drought, and ask for nothing in return. The lawn care industry calls them weeds. Every product on the shelf is designed to make you see them as enemies. But the people who built that industry knew something you were never supposed to. These plants feed you for free, and they cannot be owned. Welcome to nature's lost vault. The first of these plants was banned by an empire. Not discouraged, not displaced by a better crop. Banned. Fields burned, seeds destroyed, possession punishable by death. In 1519, Hernán Cortés arrived in Mesoamerica and found a civilization of millions, fed on corn, beans, chia, and one other grain the Aztecs called the source of supernatural strength. A grain grown on the same scale as maize, ground into flour, boiled into porridge, popped like tiny corn, eaten by warriors, priests, farmers, and children across an entire world. They called it huautli, but the Aztecs also used it in religious ceremony. They mixed it with honey to form sculptures of their gods, which were broken apart and distributed to worshippers. Cortés recognized what he was looking at. Not nutrition. A rival Eucharist. In 1521, after the fall of Tenochtitlán, he ordered the plant banned across the conquered territory. Fields were burned, stored seeds destroyed, growing or possessing it was a crime. Some accounts record death as the penalty. This is the only crop in recorded history formally outlawed by an empire as an act of cultural war. Today we call it Amaranth, or pigweed. The plant that crawls through the cracks of your garden beds, grows along field edges, and appears in every disturbed soil margin where the ground has been turned. That plant is a direct descendant of the grain Cortés burned. What survived the conquistadors outperforms the crops that replaced it. A 100-gram serving of amaranth grain delivers 14 grams of complete protein with all 9 essential amino acids. It is high in iron, magnesium, phosphorus, and lysine, the amino acid that is low in wheat, corn, and rice. NASA has studied it as a viable food source for long-duration space missions. Parma amaranth, a close relative growing wild across the American South today, has developed total resistance to glyphosate. It outgrows soybeans. It snaps metal combine machinery. It is forcing commercial cotton farmers back to hand weeding. Cortés could not kill it. Roundup cannot contain it. The grain burned in 1521 is still here. It is waiting for someone to remember what it is. The next plant was not banned by an empire. It was erased by an advertising campaign. The Puritans packed it on the Mayflower. Let that sit for a moment. The most hated weed in the American lawn was so valued by the settlers colonizing a new continent that they made room for it in their ships' limited provisions. European settlers deliberately introduced it to New England in the early 1600s as a vital food and medicine crop. By 1672, it was well established. For the next 250 years, it was a kitchen staple. The leaves made spring salads. The roots were roasted into coffee. The flowers were fermented into wine. It served as a liver tonic, a diuretic, and a remedy for heartburn and skin conditions. Ancient Egyptians, Greeks, and Romans documented it. Arab physicians in the 10th century prescribed it. Traditional Chinese medicine used it for over a millennium. 1 cup of its greens provides 535% of your daily vitamin K. More beta-carotene than a carrot. more calcium per calorie than milk. Then someone decided it should be an enemy. In the years following World War II, Scott's company began marketing synthetic herbicides to American homeowners. Their advertising told a generation that the ideal lawn was a uniform single-species carpet, green, controlled, and clean. The dandelion became the symbol of a neglected property. Scott's built a billion-dollar product line specifically around the promise of eradicating it. Today, Scott's Miracle-Gro sells products that kill more than 200 weed types. The dandelion appears right on the packaging. So does clover. Two plants the company's own cultural predecessors deliberately carried across an ocean to survive. The dandelion did not change. Its nutrition did not change. The story around it changed, because a company needed to generate recurring annual revenue from a problem it invented. A pound of dandelion greens at a premium grocery store now costs $7. The exact same plant grows free in every unmowed lawn in America. The Puritans knew what they were packing. The question is whether you remember what they packed it for. A third plant is likely sitting in your grass right now, and clinical trials have documented exactly what it does. In 2005, a peer-reviewed randomized controlled trial enrolled 60 postmenopausal women experiencing significant symptoms. Half received an isoflavone extract from this plant, and half received a placebo. At 90 days, the treatment group's reported symptom scores had dropped by 78%. A 2023 clinical trial found the same extract, taken over 3 to 6 months, significantly improved lipid profiles. Total cholesterol went down, LDL went down, triglycerides went down, and HDL went up. This is a clear lipid effect. The plant is red clover. The compounds responsible are isoflavones, specifically biochanin A and formononetin. They interact with estrogen receptors in the body, modulating the hormonal fluctuations behind hot flashes, disrupted sleep, mood changes, and the cardiovascular shifts that follow menopause. The global hormone replacement therapy market is worth over $6 billion annually. The primary products are synthetic hormone compounds, sold under brand names, requiring prescriptions, and generating ongoing revenue. Meanwhile, red clover grows in every lawn in the temperate world, free, and it hits peak isoflavone concentration during bloom. Before synthetic fertilizers replaced it in the mid-20th century, European farmers planted red clover deliberately to restore depleted fields. It fixed nitrogen from the air. It fed livestock. And the women of those farming communities knew from generations of lived experience that it supported the hormonal transition of midlife. That knowledge was not lost through scientific disproof. It was lost through the post-war transformation that separated women from botanical knowledge and moved their healthcare exclusively into the pharmacy. A bottle of red clover extract at a health food store costs $40. The flower producing the exact same compounds is at the base of your lawn. The trial data existed before the supplement existed, and the flower existed long before the trial. Then there is the plant erased by an industry that needed you to forget it wore clothes before cotton did. Strip away the water content and analyze what remains. This plant's leaf contains approximately 30% protein by dry weight. Research published in the International Journal of Food Science confirmed it is comparable to common beans and chicken as a source of essential amino acids. A single cup blanched provides nearly 100% of your daily vitamin A, alongside significant calcium, iron, potassium, and B vitamins. For 2,000 years, stinging nettle was a staple vegetable across northern Europe. Roman soldiers documented using it in the cold. Medieval communities ate it in spring soups. In Scotland, nettle pudding is one of the oldest recipes on the island. In Himalayan hill communities, it remains a primary vegetable today. Then the textile industry decided which plants mattered. Nettle fiber predates cotton in European textile history. The stems produce long, strong fibers structurally similar to linen. When the Allied naval blockade cut Germany off from cotton imports during World War I, the military turned back to nettle. Factory records from 1916 document 2.7 million kilograms of nettle fiber used to manufacture German military uniforms that year. The plant kept soldiers clothed when the global supply chain failed. After the war, cotton reasserted dominance. Investment in nettle fiber processing stopped. The plant was reclassified as a nuisance. Its sting, which 60 seconds of blanching neutralizes completely, was promoted as the reason to avoid it rather than a minor inconvenience to manage. What required 60 seconds to resolve became the reason a 2,000-year food tradition was abandoned. The leaves in your garden right now are still 30% protein. The 60 seconds has not changed. Some plants were not banned by a single named villain. They were erased by a system that needed you dependent on it. In 1840, a mummified man was discovered in a Danish bog. He had died in the 4th century BC. When scientists analyzed his stomach contents, they found its seeds among the final meal he ate before death. Before spinach arrived in Europe from Asia in the 16th century, this plant was the continent's dominant leafy green. Roman records document it. Neolithic archaeological sites contain its seeds. A North American species was cultivated 3,500 years ago alongside sunflowers and squash, feeding communities from the Great Lakes to the Gulf. Lamb's quarters. A 100-gram serving delivers 96% of your daily vitamin C, 73% of your daily vitamin A, 31% of your daily calcium, and more protein per gram than spinach. Its seeds, a cousin to quinoa, can be dried, ground into flour, or cooked as a grain. A single plant produces up to 75,000 seeds in one season. Then European contact arrived with wheat, the church, and a commercial agricultural framework that required annual seed purchases, taxable crops, and controlled land use. Lamb's quarters spread freely, grew in disturbed soil, and could not be controlled, taxed, or sold. It was reclassified as a weed. By the 20th century, American extension programs listed it among the priority targets for broadleaf herbicide programs. Today, the biggest chemical companies all produce products that name it on the label. The Blackfoot tribe was still collecting the seeds in the 16th century. Napoleon reportedly ate bread made from them. The Tolland man carried them to his death. The plant does not know it was supposed to disappear. There is another plant that followed an empire across an ocean, only to heal the damage that empire left behind. Native American peoples called it white man's footprint, not as an insult, but as an accurate observation. Wherever European settlers walked, it appeared. It followed them into forests, along cart paths, through every disturbed place their boots had turned the earth. It grew in compacted ground, where absolutely nothing else survived. Broadleaf plantain. Before it arrived in North America, it had been a respected medicinal plant in Europe for 2 millennia. Dioscorides documented it in the 1st century. The Vikings used it for wound healing. In 13th century Denmark, the physician Henrik Harpestreng wrote that it could heal everything that had been torn apart. The chemistry behind those centuries of use has now been confirmed. Plantain contains allantoin, which accelerates wound healing and cell regeneration. It contains orcubin, a powerful anti-inflammatory compound. Multiple peer-reviewed studies have documented its antimicrobial, antioxidant, and anti-ulcer activity. Crush a fresh leaf between your fingers and press it to an insect sting. The mucilage draws the venom to the surface. The anti-inflammatory compounds reduce the swelling. This is not folk belief. It is verified chemistry available in your yard at no cost. It grows in the cracks of your paving, in the compacted walkway beside your house, in every compressed corner of the property. It is still exactly what they said it was 800 years ago. Then there is the plant that fills a lethal gap. Before limes, before supplements, before the word scurvy was even attached to what was happening to them, sailors were dying. Long ocean voyages of the 15th and 16th centuries killed tens of thousands of men, not through storms or combat, but through the absence of a single compound. Vitamin C. Gums rotted. Teeth fell out. Internal bleeding spread through limbs. Entire crews were incapacitated within 10 weeks. On land, the exact same collapse happened every winter into spring. Stored grains and dried meat contained almost no vitamin C. People weakened in the gap between autumn's last harvest and the first spring green. Wood sorrel grew in that gap. It colonized partial shade, north-facing fence lines, and the dark corners of the yard where most plants refused to root. It produced fresh growth when the season was still cold, and it carried vitamin C in every leaf. The flavor tells you immediately. That sharp, citrusy sourness comes from oxalic acid. Children instinctively put wood sorrel in their mouths because something deep in them recognizes the taste as food. European folk medicine used it as a fever reducer, a digestive aid, and a spring cleanse for centuries. It grows right now under the trees in your yard, in the shaded edges where your cultivated vegetables cannot reach. It fills the gaps. It always has. Sometimes a plant is erased not by colonial violence or corporate marketing, but by a law written to protect a commodity. For 1,000 years before hops dominated European brewing, this plant was the ingredient that made ale drinkable. Brewers called it ale hoof. They added it to fermenting ale to clarify the liquid, extend its shelf life, and add a mild bitterness. The practice was so universal across medieval England that the plant acquired a second name everyone still uses today. Ground ivy. Nicholas Culpeper prescribed it in 1653 for lung disease and persistent coughs. John Gerard documented it in 1597. Modern analysis confirms what those herbalists recorded. Ground ivy contains significant rosmarinic acid, a compound with documented anti-inflammatory, antioxidant, and antimicrobial properties. Then, in 1516, the Bavarian government issued the Reinheitsgebot, the German beer purity law. Beer was to contain only water, barley, and hops. This was not about flavor. It was about control. Hops were a tradable commodity. They could be taxed, standardized, and shipped. Ground ivy, which grew freely in every garden and hedgerow across Europe, could not be commodified. Over the following 2 centuries, German brewing practices spread. Allerhof disappeared from breweries. And as it left one context, it left all contexts. A plant that every household had kept and used for 1,000 years became a lawn-edge problem. It still grows there. The rosmarinic acid is still there. The documented properties did not leave with the industry. One plant on this list is so significant, it has its own dedicated vault on this channel, linked in the description below. But it belongs here because what happened to it is one of the most documented cases of deliberate suppression in modern food history. In 2022, scientists at Yale published findings describing this plant as a biological impossibility. It runs 2 completely different photosynthesis systems simultaneously in the same cells. One is optimized for rapid growth. One is optimized for extreme drought survival. No other plant on Earth does this. It contains up to 400 milligrams of omega-3 fatty acids per 100 grams of fresh leaf. That is more than any other land plant ever measured. The global herbicide market produces products specifically formulated to kill it. It is classified as the world's most common weed. Purslane, growing in your driveway for free. The final plant does not have a dramatic villain, no imperial decree, no billion-dollar marketing campaign, no purity law. It has something quieter, a timing that no other plant in the temperate world can match. February. The ground is still cold. Your raised beds are empty. Nothing is planted. But chickweed is already growing. The most dangerous window in any food disruption is not summer drought or fall frost. It is late winter into early spring, the gap between the last stored food and the first real harvest. That window is where communities historically got into trouble first. Chickweed fills that window precisely. It begins producing in February and March, weeks before the last frost date. Dense, tender mats of bright green when absolutely nothing else will grow. The Cherokee and Creek used it as a spring green to replenish nutrients after winter. It delivers vitamins A, C, and B complex, alongside calcium, iron, magnesium, and zinc. One plant produces 800 seeds, which remain viable in the soil for up to 10 years. Once chickweed finds your garden, it is part of your garden permanently. Every late winter, without any action from you, a new flush of tender greens appears in the exact moment your body needs it most. The gap it filled was real for every generation before yours. It will be real again. Look at this list. None of these plants are rare. None require a specialist to identify, a seed catalog to obtain, or a permit to grow. They are in the margins of your property right now, in the cracks of the paving, along the fence line, and at the edges of the garden beds. Together, they provide complete vitamin C before anything else is growing, protein comparable to meat, omega-3 fatty acids that replace supplements, compounds documented in clinical trials for hormonal health, wound-healing chemistry you can apply in seconds, and a banned sacred grain that survived 500 years of suppression. None of them require seed purchases, prepared soil, irrigation, fertilizer, or annual replanting. All of them return on their own, every year, without asking permission. The $9 billion lawn care industry was built on a story. The story says a uniform green monoculture means success, and that anything growing without permission means failure. That story was written by people who needed to sell recurring, annual, never-ending products. The actual story is older. Hernán Cortés burned Amaranth fields in 1521. The plant came back. Scots built an empire on killing dandelions. The dandelion came back. The Reinheitsgebot removed ground ivy from brewing in 1516. The plant came back. They keep coming back because they were not weeds to begin with. They were medicine. They were the foundation of the food system that existed before the one that replaced it. That foundation is still here. It is growing at the edge of your lawn right now. If this vault opened something for you, subscribe to Nature's Lost Vault and hit the bell. Every like and every share preserves what they tried to erase. The next vault opens soon.